Hi, I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avistec Communications and host of StrategyCast. Join me and my guests, innovators, disruptors, and visionaries as we explore bold and brave marketing strategies that help you transform, scale, and grow your brand. Regina DeMar is Director of Content Marketing and Social Media Strategy at FNBO. She's also my guest on this edition of StrategyCast. With over a decade of experience and an AMA Pinnacle Award under her belt, Regina is here to talk about boosting engagement and staying relevant in today's fast-paced digital arena. Regina is a mastermind behind FNBO's award-winning content strategy. With a marketing knack that's driven a whopping 55% spike in podcast downloads and millions of YouTube views, authentic storytelling with smart tech to keep audiences hooked. Whether it's leveraging AI or pioneering influencer campaigns, if you're eager to transform your brand presence, this episode is a goldmine. And don't forget to check out the most recent issue of the StrategyCast newsletter on StrategyCast.com. Just like this episode, it's full of inspiration and a ton of ideas that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to StrategyCast. I am so excited to have Regina DeMar join the show today. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me, Lori.
We are taping this very early in the morning, by the way, because Regina needs to get to a golf tournament for her son. So it's amazing what we mothers do to show up early, to look great, say the right thing, and then just head off to be a mom as well. So congratulations on all that. Before we dive into this great topic today, which is all about First National Bank of Omaha's content strategy for standing out in a crowded market, a highly saturated market at that. Before we get there, tell us a little bit more about your journey, who you are, and what you do for the bank.
Yeah, sounds good. I have been in some type of marketing role for the past 25 years. I started my career in New York City at Weber Shandwick, right out of college, drove myself there and handled PR for a variety of CPG companies like Q-Tips, Dunkin' Donuts, Skippy Peanut Butter.
Cool.
And following that, I moved back to Nebraska and worked at ConAgra Foods. So again, another CPG company, and handled PR, built social media strategy, evolved that to integrated marketing for a number of food brands. And I am currently the Director of Content Marketing and Social Media Strategy at FNBO. And I've been here for almost 9 years.
Well, I tell you, and you're doing an incredible job. I was tooling through LinkedIn prior to our show, stalking you a little bit to see what you'd been up to since we first talked. And you recently won an AMA Pinnacle Award for the content strategy that you've deployed with FNBO. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that was very exciting. You know, it's always great to have others see the value in your work, and celebrating with our team at different award ceremonies is always fun to get together. So we did win for our influencer marketing work, which is super exciting because we've been testing out some new ideas with influencers, whether they're financial influencers, lifestyle, NIL, athlete partnerships. So it was excited to be able to celebrate with the team last week.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And again, congratulations. One thing that I think is always very, very important when it comes to developing a content strategy is understanding the positioning behind the brand to begin with and making sure that it just dovetails beautifully and perfectly with the content that we're pushing out. And FNBO has a very, very unique position, one that I love, by the way, and that is a great big small bank. And that was developed over 166 years ago. That positioning line. Tell us more about the significance of this brand promise and how it shapes the positioning in the market.
Yeah. So this past December, we celebrated our 166th birthday, which is quite impressive. Just to help put that in perspective, that was before Abe Lincoln was president. So very long time ago. And FNBO, if you're not aware, it's one of the largest privately held banks in the US, and we're actually in our sixth generation of family leadership. So that really does make it unique for us and helps us be able to focus on the company's long-term success. So when we think about our content strategy, we are always trying to figure out how do we create content that is going to make people stop and listen and find value in it. We want to move them from brand awareness to brand preference. And we think a lot about our messaging and our creative to create that emotional connection and breakthrough. So we become part of that consideration set whenever people are looking for either a new relationship or expanding upon a new one. So it's really great from, the great big small bank we talk about. We want to be able to offer what, maybe bigger banks are able to offer, but with that personal touch. So that handshake, we want people to know that we really understand their business, we care, and, we're focused on what matters to them most.
I think that's amazing. Your heritage is really, it's truly it's amazing. It's probably one of the oldest banks or oldest businesses rather in the United States. And what's really important surrounding that point is that you maintain relevancy, over the past 166 years, and you're not stuck in the past. You've obviously reinvented the bank and the services as technology has changed, as the consumer consumption has changed, to make sure that you are relevant every stretch of the way. And along with that, marketing has to either lead the charge or keep up with it. How has this positioning, this heritage, led to the content strategy, especially knowing that history can still be something that is very important, but relevancy is as important?
Yeah, definitely. So with our long history, fortunately, we have so many amazing stories to be able to tell across our markets. So when I started 9 years ago, I really thought about, we were telling a portion of stories that I thought we could be telling. So developed content pillars, which really helped us provide a framework and a filter for our messaging and our content strategy, and worked with the rest of the marketing team to figure out how do we best tell these stories. And I know we're a very humble bank, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't sound boastful, but we wanted to make sure that we were thinking about what are all those different types of stories that we want to tell. How do we come up with content that shows people that, we're a place you want to bank with, we align with people's values, we are an employer of choice, we do so much in our communities. We're like, how do we bring stories to life that showcase how we're a strategic community partner, how we offer products and services, like you said, that are relevant? So we really took a step back and took time to figure out what are those pillars, what are those stories, and created content across those. One of the big things that has happened since I've been at the bank, when I started, we had 11 market-specific websites. We had market-specific social media channels. And even though our legal name is First National Bank of Omaha, we're like, how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we have a more ownable presence? How do we elevate that? So we rebranded in 2019 to FNBO. So that really helped us. We changed our signage, we migrated all the websites, we, condensed our social media platforms, and that really did help us be able to tell our stories more easily across kind of our overall paid, earned, and shared model.
Well, and the consistency there is key. I want to dive into the content
Mhm.
pillars and just your POV on them. Uh, a lot of brands that are in market, I love reverse engineering strategy, by the way. So if
Mhm.
I'm studying a brand, I can, within probably a 2 to 3 week time period, reverse engineer what their content pillars are,
Mhm.
knowing that not every day or every week a content pillar is going to hit market. Are there, well, two questions. Are there too many content pillars that a brand can deploy? And what is the sweet spot for the number
Mhm.
a brand should deploy? And then how do you determine there's so much information that
Mhm.
one bank could get out to the market? How do you determine which content pillars are the most important for the market?
Yeah. Um, so we have gone between 5 and 6 over the years, and I really think that you don't wanna go more than that because then your messaging would be more fragmented. But we actually, to help determine how much content we put into each pillar, we assign a percent of it. So, like I mentioned, we wanna talk about our brand positioning. So, our promise to be customer-led, that's one pillar. Focusing on products and services, that brand of choice, employer of choice. We are a financial institution, so we want to be a trusted financial resource and also a strategic community partner. So we make sure we have a balance of those messages because we don't want to focus our content solely on talking about our products and services. Those are very important, but it's also really important to make sure we're telling holistic stories so customers and prospects understand who they will be banking with, what our values are, and make sure we have those come to life in a really authentic way. So if you are maybe not a company that's doing a lot in the community, you wouldn't want to focus your efforts on that content pillars because it's going to people can read through that, they're going to see that. So you want to make sure any messaging that you're sharing in the market, you're backing that up with, examples of what you're actually doing.
And you back that up so well, even with the positioning line in focusing on small and big as a creative strategy within your content. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So it's really fun to kind of play off of that. We are a very large bank, but we are so ingrained into our communities. So we do have that community aspect. I mean, I remember when I was, leaving ConAgra and coming to FNBO, and my kids were very funny. They're like, well, we think you should work for a company who's really prevalent in the market. And they're like, how about FNBO? They're everywhere. I mean,
Oh,
you can't go anywhere. It was so funny to hear that from my older son. He's like, well, I mean, there's a branch, and then we see it on the billboard. We see it at every, sporting event. He is and was very into sports. So he's like, they're everywhere. Like, that seems like a cool place to work.
I think that's so great. And look at where you are. I actually remember when I was just fresh out of college, I used to, when I would have a meeting, I would drive around in the office park to just see what other companies, were around there. And me being the efficient one that I am, I thought, okay, if I can pick up two more companies, in this area of town, then it's going to be really effective for me, to be down there. And I saw the brand Pentax, which is one of the world's leading optics company with camera and binoculars, so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And I said to myself, I'm going to work with that company. 2 years later, we had a contract with Pentax and we're with them for 10 years. But the brand itself became so important to my children, is where I'm going with this story. They loved it. They were just ingrained with it. So it's wonderful as we marketers, product development teams, so on and so forth. It's so much fun to see how ingrained our kids do get with the brands. So you use a methodology within the organization called NIL. Talk
Mhm.
to us about that approach and define it for our audience, if you would.
Yeah, sounds good. So NIL, name, image, and likeness. We have tested several different partnerships. So, like I mentioned, we've had strong relationships with collegiate partners for years. So when NIL came out, it was really just a natural extension for us to kind of test working with student athletes as part of our efforts. And we know younger demographics, they often turn to influencers and people they trust when they're making decisions who are kind of like them. So if you're thinking about, wanting to reach college demographics, like this is a natural way in with them. So it's been awesome to see the different engagement and the comments we've seen by partnering with these student athletes across several of our markets. So typically when a social post goes live, we'll instantly see an increase in followers. On average, they each have, every post will have over 1,000 likes. And then we'll see comments, which we absolutely love, is, I've been searching for a banking relationship. This is great information. I'm going to, check out FNBO, or I'm going to become a customer. So you instantly see the connection that they're having. And, again, it's aligning to their like interests. So if they, go to Creighton and we feature a basketball player at Creighton or a basketball player at Nebraska this year, because we did really well this year, or a volleyball player at Nebraska, which has been, so amazing to see that program grow over the years. So again, just, thinking about a fun way to partner with these athletes and showcase our products and services, but in, a fun, engaging way. So, they'll hold up a debit card or, talk about how we're a bank of, the Bank of Husker Nation. So just reaffirming that relationship that we have with them.
And what I love about what you're saying is the humanization of the brand. And there are so many brands in market right now that are not humanized. They're not touchable. They're not believable, which creates a lack of trust in all these areas. And especially it's natural for a bank to humanize its brand with people, but it's not necessarily natural for a tech product to humanize the brand. And I think there's a big opportunity there for tech companies to show the brand, the product in use by humanizing it instead of just showing the product. And huge opportunity, listeners, for those of you who might be in the tech space today, really to take note of that. And humanizing a brand the way that consumer brands do is something that more tech companies really must engage in.
Yeah, I think it's, again, going back to kind of storytelling. So I know when I went from, my long history in CPG to banking, a lot of my friends were like, what are you going to talk about? Like, that seems kind of boring. But again, it comes back to that storytelling. And thankfully, we've been able to, really look at what stories are going to make people feel connected, what's going to drive that, emotional connection and that positive association, because we could just say, oh, here, we offer ag lending, or we offer, these banking services, but we really think about the stories that we want to tell. Our brand team shares stories of our ag customers and creates these beautiful videos that show how they're having an impact in the community. So when somebody is looking for an ag lender, hopefully they think of us versus just saying, oh, we offer ag lending, or, our small business customers. We could just say, you should check out this small business customer in our market. They're great, but we go in and we really capture the stories, how they got started, what they're offering. Sometimes we'll do like how-to videos that we can share on our channels so people really understand how to create, for instance, if it's, Mother's Day, and we'll tie in creating a bouquet of flowers on a budget. So we try to tie in that financial perspective, but also showcase what our small business customers are doing and how they achieve their dreams. So if somebody else is interested and think they want to, start a side hustle or start a small business, they have that more emotional connection because, we know stories are what people remember versus just talking about what you're offering. So I think if the tech companies could think about, do we showcase the value that of the products that we're offering and feature people who are actually doing that, and think about it from a storytelling perspective, that could be really impactful.
It's such a good point that you make. And it seems so simple, but it takes great strategy backing that up, and really the content strategy laddering up to the overall marketing or comm strategy, and then that laddering up to the business strategy in order to make all this work. How do you make sure that you're maintaining a great content strategy that does meet all the OKRs and KPIs of that that overarching strategy?
Yeah. A strong content strategy definitely needs to align with your overall company goals. So that's why, it was really helpful to create the content pillars to say, this is a framework. Are we covering all the lines of business for the stories that we want to tell in an impactful way? We know that consumers' behaviors are always, constantly changing. So we evaluate, where are the audiences that we want to meet? What channels are they on? And then we have to think through, what's the information that they're seeking and how do we make that relevant and stand out? As a team, we always talk about, it would be great if we could just create one piece of content and share it on all of our channels. Well, that wouldn't drive much engagement, because what we create on Instagram is very different than what we create on LinkedIn versus Facebook. So, we're all the time, we're looking at, who are the audiences, what's relevant, what's trending, and evolve that strategy. We have a blog, so we're on, all the social media channels, Facebook, X, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, LinkedIn, but it wasn't always easy to even get those approved, especially TikTok. I think that took us a couple years of just showcasing, like, here's the type of content we want to put out there, and here's why we need to be there. And then we have our strategy in place. But again, we have to look at what is trending. So when a younger demographic is on that channel, we're like, oh, wow, FNBO really understands me. They're creating content that's engaging. And, we look at all those channels. We have a blog, we have a podcast, we have a video series. So again, it's really understanding your consumers, their behaviors, and, reaching them with the right message at the right time on the right channel.
Yeah. All of this rolls up to what we refer to as social selling. And it is a very unique approach to intriguing an audience, getting them to stop, getting them to come back for great, great content. And then ultimately, the old school way of educate, 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 ask, educate, 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 ask, or motivate, 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 ask, whatever that tie is for your brand. And have you been able to measure, either with engagement or direct CTRs or anything like that, CTAs rather, what the impact is of content on retention or new prospect transition to customer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we look at, a variety of ways to track success with our content marketing and social efforts, including social selling. So we look at the typical impressions, reach, engagement, follower growth, time spent on site. And from a social selling perspective, we've had a mortgage loan officer program for about 8 years, and we see the impact. We hear from them, how many loans we're able to help them close based on those efforts. And then earlier this year, we launched a social advocacy platform, because before we were doing it very manually and looking at success and getting information from our loan officers. So we expanded this to our relationship managers and really employees across the bank, marketing, HR. We really wanted to understand and make it easier for people to share content. So we put our content into this tool, and with a click of a button, you can share it across different platforms. And it was pretty cool to see, just since we launched this in January, based on the tool's calculations, the earned media value, I think, is about 70,000 right now. So it's exciting to have a tool that can measure it for you and say, this is the impact you're having. And, that platform has already been paid for based on those efforts.
Is it a customized platform, or is it a platform that our listeners would be interested in knowing about?
So it's actually a Sprout Social Advocacy, and we already have a relationship with them from a monitoring and publishing perspective. So for us, it made sense just to expand to include advocacy, because we also started an employee brand ambassador program about, probably 8 years ago too. And so it just made more sense to be able to track, there's a leaderboard on there so you can see who's sharing the most content and what type of content they're creating, as well as, our employees will create their own content, which is great, but the platform just makes it super easy. So yeah, there's a lot of different ones out there that are available, but this one made sense for us because we already had a relationship with them.
I love that. So we know that the DNA of the organization is a central theme. How do you ensure customer centricity is at the forefront? And even with, your team members being able to create some of the content here, how do you ensure that customer centricity is right there with all of the outbound strategies that you deploy?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are constantly just evaluating consumer trends, their behaviors, how they want how they want to receive content. With AI, we know that that's huge. And it's it's a growing trend. So we continue to learn and test and grow our capabilities using AI, but we're already using it on our website to help tailor the experience to our customers and prospects. So when they go to the site, we can follow them, see the information that they're engaging with. So then when they come back to the website, we can give them that customized experience. So we're, activating digital marketing and testing new tools just to ensure that we have those right capabilities, because customers' behaviors, they've been evolving significantly over the last several years. And I think it's just, going to be faster. And so you have to keep on top of those trends. And we work with, marketing overall and other parts of the organization from a product perspective, to say, here's the comments that we're seeing on social media. And we'll be able to share those with, the product team and say, this is something that we see as a reoccurring theme and a trend. So can we potentially look into offering this to our customers? Because, we can use social media. It is a great tool from a listening perspective to hear what are consumers looking for and try to get ahead of that and offer it to them.
I love the fact that there's this cross-departmental play, and you're really able to have great dialogue internally in order to determine what is the next. Tying that into customer centricity, how are you measuring, or what are some additional approaches that you've deployed to make sure that what is being developed is measurable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are constantly looking at, what are consumers engaging with from a content perspective. We want to make sure, we have a small team and we're creating a lot of pieces of content across several different platforms. So we always look at what is driving that engagement so we can create more of that. Thankfully, last year we saw an increase in our followers across our channels. From a podcast perspective, we saw 55% increase in downloads. YouTube, we had 4.5 million views. So again, looking at those channels, they're performing well, but what is the type of content that people are seeking? So, we create everything from Cashology, which is just more financial tips and topics, real estate, community, small business, wealth management, commercial banking across all of our different verticals. So we'll look at, what's the engagement on each of these, and then figure out what else do we need to create. And what's really cool, kind of what I was talking about with social listening. So depending on what's trending, we'll quickly say, okay, everybody is searching for this right now online. We need to create content. So when they're looking for that information, we come up from a search perspective. We work really closely with our SEO team, which helps us be able to say, what are people searching for? Plus, they'll look at the content we're creating and say, do you need to evolve the words that you're using at all to make that more prevalent from a search perspective?
I absolutely love that. And it's so smart. You brought up AI just a moment ago. And one of the things that you are just proving is that ChatGPT cannot replace content departments. There is so many moving parts, so many, especially when your brand is as humanized as it is, as FNBO is, and the interplay with customers and your and NIL approach, and the college students and athletes and all that sort of stuff. That cannot be taken care of with an AI tool. And you've proven that humans need to be implementing content strategies as well. Have you had that discussion internally?
Yes, we have. And, AI is, like I mentioned, it's
Great tool.
going to, it's a great tool, and it's going to get smarter. And we've tested it from a content perspective. Sometimes if we get, stumped on a specific topic and we want to leverage ChatGPT from a brainstorming perspective, it's great. But we've also, just had some fun with it and tried to say, okay, create this social media post. And every time we're like, that does not sound anything like our brand voice. But it's a good starting point. And it's really helped us too with our social advocacy tool that I mentioned. Like, there's an option in there where you can create a few different post options. So we'll create the first one, and then we'll say, okay, create a couple more options. So when our employees are sharing that content, they're not sharing the exact same copy. So it's great to, be able to leverage it as part of our content strategy, but definitely not been able to, just replace content. If you ask it to create a blog, or like, that doesn't even make sense. So you just have to be really aware when you're leveraging it. It's helpful, makes your work more efficient, but you definitely need the human part of it to be able to put it into your specific brand voice. Because again, if you don't, your customers are going to see right through that. They're going to say, that doesn't sound anything like what they would say. So just be careful when you're using it and make sure you're using it in the right way. But as it evolves, we'll continue to see what other ways it can help us be more efficient and effective.
Yeah, I love that. And you're spot on in how you're using it from what we're experiencing as well. The research, the insights, it's absolutely fabulous. And, some of the trained chats are really doing well at being able to maintain a little bit more of the brand authenticity based on what you feed into it. So we're experimenting with a lot of that right now. So we're an agency that loves frameworks. We have gazillions of frameworks for all the different things that we deploy, whether they be internal processes or all the strategic levers and implementation for our clients. Do you have a framework or any resources that you can recommend today to our listeners, or for our listeners, that they can go to implement a similar strategy within their marketing team?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just, it's very important to ensure you remain purposeful and consistent in your marketing approach. So if you don't already have content pillars, that is a great way to, provide a framework and that filter that I mentioned as you're working on the messages that you want to deliver. Make sure that they are reflecting your company, your brand in an authentic way. And it's amazing how just putting those pillars in place across all of marketing really helps you determine what is the right, content that you want to push out.
Yeah, I think that's great. So many insights that you've shared with us today, Regina. Seemingly, content seems to be a very, very easy thing for companies to deploy. You have proven why it's not and why the strategy backing it up is so incredibly important, and then how ultimately it's implemented. So thank you very much for your wisdom shared today. Any final thoughts for our audience, and what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I would say, it's really fun to watch other companies. And so look at other brands or companies that you emulate and, see what the content they are creating, see how you could potentially maybe leverage something similar. And again, always be looking at consumer behaviors. So even if something isn't specific in your industry, if you see that consumers are really gravitating towards a certain trend, you can brainstorm how that could work for you. We've done that a lot and have seen a lot of success with that. And yeah, I think just have fun with it. Make sure you're authentic to your brand, but also have fun creating content, especially with how trends evolve like every minute. It's kind of fun to be able to jump on those trends and, see how that content works for your company or your brand as well.
I love that. Do you have a percentage of content that you dedicate to testing?
No, I mean, it's more, I would say it ends up being probably about 10% of our content just because, once we launched TikTok, like I mentioned, those trends are like change on a daily basis. So thankfully, sometimes our team will just come into the office and be like, okay, did you see that on TikTok? We need to recreate that right now. And thankfully, our employees are very willing to be part of our crazy ideas that we have. So it's kind of fun just to be able to involve your team as well to create that content. It's just, if you think about how much it's evolved over, the last few years with, TikTok coming around, it's like, kids weren't just dancing around in the street and in schools. But ever since that was launched, you're like, well, I know what they're doing. They're creating TikToks. And so now it's just, I think 5 years ago, we would have asked our employees, like, be in a video, and they'd all say, no, I don't want to be in it. But it's part of that consumer behavior that's evolved. And now people enjoy it. They have fun with it. They see it. And so they're very helpful to when we ask them to recreate it on our channel. So if you have a chance, check out our FNBO social media channels. I think the information is valuable, but it's also kind of fun and engaging.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And you just won that big AMA award for it. So again,
Yes.
congrats on that. And the best way for our audience to get a hold of you?
You can reach me on LinkedIn, Regina DeMar. A lot of people reach out to me on there. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
That's great. Regina, again, thank you so much for your appearance. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can go ahead and email me at lori@strategycast.com. And don't forget to sign up for the StrategyCast newsletter there as well. And Regina, again, thank you so much for your appearance on StrategyCast.
Yes, thank you so much for the time today, Lori. I hope your listeners find the information valuable.
Well, I know they will. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.